Hey, what's up, guys? It's Fly, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a scuffed video, hashtag inspired by Scott Knotts, to go over my opinions on the new PTB coming out with the Resident Evil DLC and how that might impact us console folk. So, getting into it, I'm going to break it down real quick with the overall opinion on the DLC from a total standpoint, and then I'm going to move towards the actual console slash mostly controller impact that I think it might have that might have a couple of differences. This won't be an in-depth super cover video of every single detail of the DLC. There's plenty of videos out that as is. The gameplay here is from my Twitch streams. There's plenty of people talking about it. I'm going to assume that you know just the general idea. You don't need to know like everything about the DLC, but just a general idea of what's going on. So first off, we got Nemesis coming in to Dead by Daylight. Get hyped. I've only ever played Resident Evil 7, so I'm by no means a Resident Evil fanboy or anything like that, but I am excited because we are social creatures and everyone else is excited. Highly recommend getting hyped for Resident Evil coming into Dead by Daylight. That is huge. It's going to bring in a lot of new players. I think it's really awesome. So, Nemesis, how are we feeling about him? I think he's all right. Obviously, I don't think he's going to become the next Nurse or the next Spirit, but he's not Trickster. He's not Blight when he was first released on console. You're going to be able to put in some work with him. It seems like he's very much like Myers in that you really want to get out of your tier 1. He's got 3 tiers just like Myers does, except his tiers never go away. And much like Myers, you want to get out of that tier 1 as quick as possible, because otherwise you're just 115% movement scaler, just kind of hanging out, just taking a tour around the map. So trying to get your power up is going to be the most important thing. He also punches people as his main attack, and I just felt like I should point that out because it's awesome. Also in tandem with the killer is the fact that Nemesis now brings in 2 zombies, which are AI controlled, that help the killer whenever he plays, no matter the map. These zombies are going to either make your game or break your game, not in that they're strong, but in how much fun you're having. And I mean that for both the killer and especially the survivor. These guys are RNG machines. If you're on an indoor map, they're going to block doorways, they're going to be stuck in the same room as a generator, and you're not going to be able to work on the generator, or you're going to keep tapping it like it's 2016 all over again. It is going to be an entire mess. If you're on big maps, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to do a single thing. They're going to be just dressing for the map, and that's it. So, now I got that out of the way. In case you're curious, I love them. I think they're great, but that's just because I love RNG, because I'm a psychopath. Moving on into the survivors, you've got Leon Kennedy and Jill Valentine. They're pretty cool. They've got some pretty interesting perks. Nothing that's no DS or Iron Will, anything like that. However, they do have a couple perks that are really interesting. Leon's Rookie Spirit allows you to see all regressing generators on the map. That's really good information. The fact that he can make a flashbang, I love that they're bringing crafting into Dead by Daylight. I think that's really cool. Jill's ability to place a landmine on a generator essentially is a very similar idea to one that I had in the past. I'd love to see it implemented. I think it's really cool. You're gonna get a couple of more compilation videos out of a lot of these things, but I think that they bring in new mechanics, and I think they're pretty cool. If there's anything that I could hype up about this DLC is that I love how it's introducing new mechanics. I love the behavior is trying to bring in new things into Dead by Daylight. Even if they're not gigantic things like new modes, they're bringing in, now you can craft something with Leon's flashbang. Now there's AI-controlled enemies in the map with the zombies. They're trying to bring in new things to update it and keep it fresh, and I really can't applaud that enough. So you're going to keep it fresh. Moving into the Resident Evil map, I unfortunately was only able to play maybe a handful of matches on it. That said, from what I have played, you're going to see a lot of people dissing this map. Reminds me a lot of Midwich, except probably a little bit worse in that design team, art team, fucking beautiful, absolutely incredible. This map is beautiful. It is authentic. From all the Resident Evil fans that I've heard talking about it, it is down to the details, very nice. It looks amazing. Gameplay-wise, it is just walls and corridors and safe pallets occasionally. You're just going to be wandering around. Survivors are going to have a hard time finding generators. The first match that I played on that map, we knocked out 4 of the generators in about 6 or 7 minutes, and then spent the next 6 to 7 minutes just looking for the other 3 generators. I couldn't find them. It is a surprisingly large map. I kept turning corridors and then finding another new room that I had never been in, which, to Resident Evil's credit, that sounds perfect, but in a game like Dead by Daylight, that hurts. So I'm not sure if they're going to edit that map down or if you're just going to have to deal with it, in which case it's going to take some practice. New players are definitely going to hurt on it. And, man, sucks to suck for lots of killers that have powers around mobility. But it is what it is. It looks great. We'll figure out ways to roll through it, and I think it'll be pretty interesting. As far as moving into how console and controller feels with this killer. So as you guys know, I'm an Xbox player. I sneak into the PTB. I just, hop the fence into the PC PTB, try and give you guys a little heads up, try and get a little sneak peek for all my fellow console players. Survivor, as per usual, not really that big of a difference when it comes to controlling mechanics. My only pro tip would be to all of you that have your skill check button mapped to the same button as what you use for things like Dead Hard, your primary action button. You don't have to now, because now there's only 2 perks that use it, but as time goes on, you're probably going to need to switch it. I've switched my mapping, so my skill checks are different than my Dead Hard, purely because that same button that you would use, your primary action button, is the same one that you use for now blocking a gen with Cheryl's perk, and now placing the landmine with Jill's perk. I imagine as more perks come out, and if you want to use them, you have to change your mapping, and as more perks come out, there's a possibility that there's something else that you might like in the future that you have to change your mapping for anyways. So I just recommend doing it now rather than later. Find what the next comfortable mapping would be and just doing that. Bit of a tangent. A lot of people won't even care because a lot of people already have their buttons mapped, but I wanted to give a heads up to y'all that don't. Easily the biggest thing that I would say is a heads up as far as the difference between controller versus a mouse and keyboard. As you guys know, I'm not a big mouse and keyboard player. I can do a decent nurse, and then everything else is terrible. I can barely type, so let alone play killer. That said, aiming with Nemesis's tentacle, that his whip ability, aiming with that is particularly difficult on controller, especially if you're like me and you have your sensitivity bumped up to the max. It reminds me very much of if you are playing Huntress on controller and there's a survivor that's just running directly in front of you, like a foot away from you, and they're dodging back and forth and you're trying to nail the hatchet throw. It reminds me a lot of that, except the whip has an even smaller hitbox. Huntress, let's be honest, kind of throws cardboard box size hitboxes at people. This whip is almost Deathslinger's size, except it's not Deathslinger's speed. So it is surprisingly difficult to get hits on people that are close to you, especially because of just how tall and imposing this giant Dorito chip on stilts is. He's huge, and a lot of people will run at you, and I believe Otts or Scott pointed this out. If they run directly into you, you can actually kind of lose them. You're so tall, and the whip animation takes up like a solid chunk of your screen that it can be hard to actually even see someone who's running around you, let alone hit them with it. So if there's any big impact that I could say between mouse and keyboard and controller, it's that all my controller players, aiming with the whip's going to be harder than you expect. As always, you can get used to it. I'm going to give you some tough love. I'm never a fan of being like, it's too hard. It's not. You can get used to it, but it's going to take practice. It's going to be a hurdle you're going to climb over. So that's a heads up for y'all. Anyways, that's pretty much it. I wanted to keep it a fairly short one. I wasn't planning on going too much into it, just wanted to give a little heads up. It's kind of an experiment video. I was testing out the idea of doing more discussion videos like this. Apologies if it's scuffed at all, but I appreciate you all watching. Feel free to check me out live on Twitch. Link is down below. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. Actually, you know what? No, this is my first one. It's scuffed. It's supposed to be terrible. Dislike it. Unsubscribe. This video sucks. Get hyped for the Resident Evil DLC, guys. I'll catch you later.